Ladies, have you been wanting to make a change, but you don't feel ready? Here's the truth. Readiness is a lie. The model of confidence for women is backward, and we need to flip it. I'm Cara Moeller Poppitt, author of a new book, Big Freaking Change. After coaching thousands of women, I discovered action gives us confidence, not the other way around. If we wait to feel ready, we'll wait forever. So if you're ready to get unstuck and step into the life you've always dreamed about, visit bigfreakinchange.com right now and order your copy. Welcome to the Big Freaking Change podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of those who took bold action, embraced uncertainty, and transformed their lives without ever feeling ready. I'm your host, Cara Moeller Poppitt, author of The Big Freakin' Change and the creator of the Get Unstuck Cycle of Change model. Each week, we'll sit down with remarkable individuals who have taken bold steps in their lives, personally and professionally, to make meaningful change. Whether you're seeking a career shift, personal growth, or a boost in confidence, our goal is to inspire you to stop waiting and start taking action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big Freaking Change. I am so delighted to be here with our amazing guest, Jeffrey Shaw. Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Cara, I'm very excited to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I would love to read your bio so everyone can see and hear your brilliance, because you're just an incredible person. I've never met you in person. I got to watch you from afar in Author Collective and also your book. So it's just great to see you and connect with you today. So Jeffrey Shaw, he is from humble beginnings. Jeffrey Shaw became one of the most prominent portrait photographers in the United States. His portraits have appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show, who I love, CBC News, in People and O Magazine, and hung in the halls of Harvard University. Today, Jeffrey speaks about how to sell to affluent clientele at events and conferences for organizations such as ACID, NKBA, the Pearl Collective Design Trust and Luxury Home Design Summit, and for corporations like Verizon and BMW. He is the author of Lingo, The Self-Employed Life, and the forthcoming book, which is coming in April, Sell to the Rich. He's a LinkedIn learning instructor and the host of the Self-Employed Life podcast. Jeffrey is also the founder of the Self-Employed Business Institute. His TEDx talk is featured on TED.com, and he is responsible for the creations of National Self-Employed Day, which falls on May 4th of the U.S. national calendar and honors the hard work and contribution of independent business owners. So thank you so much, Jeffrey, for being with us.
Thank you for going through reading all that.
Yes, it's always amazing to see what people have really done in their life. You know, we know people for different chapters, or we see them in a different lens, and reading your bio is like, wow, you sure have done it all. So talk to me about what brings you the most joy in all that you're doing now.
And so on topic with your show, believe me, I have a few different variations of my bio out there. So when I sit back and hear it, it does sound like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Not just a lot of accomplishment. It just sounds like a lot. Like it just sounds like a lot of chaos, a lot of stuff, a lot of doing. But you realize, I think, by the whole nature of change, right? Like these are all like iterative changes that go on with our lives. And it's not until I pause and hear somebody read my bio that you realize all the changes that took place. Because when you're in it, it doesn't feel that way, right? I mean, some things feel like absolutely big freaking changes, but other changes, and sometimes even the big ones, you just kind of move through. I mean, I don't think that's just me. I think that's most people. But it's not until I slow down or I hear someone like you read my bio, I'm thinking, good Lord, like, I guess that all that did happen, one change after another. But as far as what brings me the most joy, for one, I will say my work, my coaching work, and I'm not ashamed to say that, because I feel like, and I have a couple coaching clients of my own that are in the space of talking about alignment versus work-life balance. And a couple of my clients, I have pointed out to them, I'm so glad they have a voice, because they're making those of us that are passionate about our work, making it okay. Because I feel like in a world where there's a lot of focus on wellness and balance, and those of us that get validation and self-esteem and worth and satisfaction out of our work, sometimes we can feel guilty because it's as if we're supposed to be taking care of us. It's not that I don't take care of myself. I've got very strong boundaries. But the fact of the matter is, I thrive in my work environment. So I'm trying to not be ashamed of saying work brings me joy, and that's okay with me, as well as other
Yeah.
things. But that's certainly, my work brings me a tremendous amount of joy.
I love that honesty, and I think we can all just whatever we own is the truth for us, right? And so being authentic and acknowledging, yeah, my work is bringing me joy, and I think it's when we find our purpose that we do have joy through our work.
Yeah, I had a therapist say to me once, based on, getting to know me in my childhood, he had said, "Well, it seems to me that you got all your validation through
Mm,
your work." And he was right. I mean, I didn't have parents that told me they were proud of me, or, I didn't never really met my father's approval. He passed when I was young, but in my youth, like, it was never a feeling I had that I had achieved his approval. So, in that sense, my validation for hard work, my validation for making a difference has come through my work.
mhm,
Right. So I don't think that's unusual. You mentioned
mhm.
Oprah before, which, by the way, she's even more wonderful in person.
Oh,
Just which is so nice to hear, right? Because
yes,
you hear all the nightmare stories of people being so different. She's an even better human in person than her public persona. But, look at her road to
yes.
success, right? I mean, it was a challenging one, and I think sometimes what we're seeking for, whether it's validation or getting out of where we come from, those things are such strong drivers to success. I also have found that those drivers don't have to stay with you forever. And I think sometimes what drives that initial version of our bolder selves can be driven by challenges. And
Mhm.
then we get to a point in life and realize that what got us here doesn't get us there. Like, I don't
Yes.
feel as driven by what I've come to call, as a coach, negative fuel sources. Like, I don't need competition. I don't need challenge. Even as a speaker, but when you're a speaker, people say all the time that it's okay if you're nervous, because that if you're nervous, it means you care. Like, I actually don't need nervousness to drive me to caring. I care.
Yes.
So I find, hopefully, as you mature and as more time in the world and out in the workplace, that I don't need what I used to need to drive change and drive success and motivation for me. It's a little more innate now, and it's, I
Mhm.
think, for different purposes. So, what got us here doesn't get us there, but I can certainly admit to a lot of my validation coming through my work.
Yeah, I think it's very true for most high achievers, right? We learn something at a young age, and whether it's right or wrong or indifferent, it's just how we were brought up. And then having that awareness to go, okay, this is why I'm wired this way, or this is why it's really important to me. And now I embrace it. And now I'm intrinsically going to motivate myself and validate myself. I think there's no harm in understanding where we came from, really understanding that as a strength, and then embracing it to go, okay, now I'm going to be intrinsically motivated. And I remember once I was in university and I started realizing, man, I don't need to tell anybody my successes. I'm going to actually have a one person dance party for myself. And I went and bought a new outfit. And I just remember taking it all in for myself, that I was like, wow, I did this for myself. I don't need to tell anybody, and I'm still able to celebrate and own it. And that's a lesson that I'm trying to instill in my children when they come home with something and show me, Mom, I did this. I'm like, oh, are you proud of it? Do you like it? I ask them and they say, yes. And I say, oh, I'm so happy you love it, because I want them to own their emotions and their feelings as well. So I know you have children too. And I'm sure that after you go through different chapters of your life, you have different awareness. So you can talk to me about your children, or even the clients that you coach, about, intrinsic motivation versus external validation.
Well, all of my kids they're grown adults now. They range between 28 and 32. They're grown adults. But raising them, a philosophy I came across at one point, which has always stuck with me, was that I try to teach my kids to meet the sun halfway. So what I meant by that, and what they seem to really ingrain, I have three very ambitious kids. My middle child, which is my oldest daughter, she works with me in my company, so she's my right hand person. I mean, she keeps me intact. And my son is very independent and on his own, and my youngest is as well. So I have three very ambitious kids, and I think it came from that philosophy, because I knew they were growing up privileged by a lot of standards, by my own success. I didn't grow up privileged in any way, shape, or form. I grew up very lower middle class, but through my talent as a photographer, I was determined. Actually, we've now to the when I speak on stages, I refer to this as your diamond edge. What I refer to your diamond edge is knowing it goes beyond a why, beyond your purpose. It's a little more action oriented. It's knowing why you do what you do that's bigger than the money and bigger than kind of keeping up with the demands of it all. And for me, that was my diamond edge. And I was so driven by wanting to give my kids a different start in life than I had. Not that my start in life was horrible. I just knew that I wanted them to have more of everything. And that just didn't just mean money. I mean more education and more culture because I had to take all that on myself. I wasn't exposed to it naturally through my family. So the idea of meeting the sun halfway was to let my kids embrace that they were blessed. Right. I wanted them to be aware from a gratitude perspective that, hey, you're already starting with a pretty good grounding. And I didn't want them to be lazy. I wanted them. So I really ingrained in them that you have to meet the sun halfway. But I feel that way about everything. I mean, I don't expect even 40 years into business, I don't expect anything to land on my lap easily. I do expect to receive. I expect to get what I deserve in a good way. I expect the universe to deliver to me, but I don't expect it to be handed to me. Right. So I will always, I think just the whole notion of meeting the sun halfway is also helpful because I don't push, certainly not like I did in my younger years. Like I know when to identify that, hey, maybe this isn't meant for me. Maybe I'm trying to make something work that isn't meant for me. Maybe just not at this time. But I've also learned to just observe at the point where maybe I want something that life isn't ready for me to have yet, and
Mm.
just to accept that and move on.
I love that you speak about the flow, right? You're not pushing and you're not having that force. And do you believe that it comes with self-acceptance that you start to be in more flow? Or how would you experience the shift from pushing? Is it drive? Is it that career? And then once you have a certain amount and a certain amount of success and comfort that you shift into flow? Or what's been your experience personally and also working with your clients?
Whew, I have to say, this has probably been one of the biggest mindset shifts I've ever had to make and continue to struggle with. And I identify it as being willing to trust that there's something bigger than you at play.
Yes.
You know, regardless of somebody's religious affiliations, or I mean, that's everyone's personal choice. I believe in a higher power in a universe. I was raised in, the dogma of a religion that I can't necessarily say I fully support at this point in my life, but I do believe there's something bigger. I think this is true of a lot of entrepreneurs and those that I work with. I will bring this up to a client and they'll say, "Oh no, I'm a very faithful person. I absolutely believe there's something bigger than me." And I'm like, "Really?" Because you act like somebody who has the weight of the world on your shoulders. Right. So do you really believe it? Because, and what I'm trying to, as their coach, what I'm trying to get them to do is to identify that, because you're not really leaning into trust here, because if you did, you would accept things that come along that don't work out the way you want to, because you would trust that it's for a different reason. The risk of walking around in the world, and certainly in business, with the weight of the world on your shoulders is you are inherently limiting yourself to what you can carry. But
Oh,
if you
that's good.
Right, but if you trust in something bigger and even trust in the support you have around you and your team, if you truly, truly leaning into trust, that's how you go beyond what you have set for yourself as you're capable of achieving. It's funny how people identify that they have faith, they trust in something bigger. I have a trust mantra that I pull out of my back pocket when needed. Like, when those clusters come along, shall we say, when it seems like everything's going wrong at the same time. So my trust mantra is to trust that things are falling together for reasons that are bigger than I can imagine. So in that trust mantra is truly believing like the pieces are falling together, even though it looks like they're falling apart. If you really believe in that and you really trust, you're going to trust that they're falling together for something bigger than you can imagine. And to me, what I need also is it's stretching me into, well, let me accept what I can't even accept for myself. Like I don't even see myself being that big of a success or that big of a deal, whatever it is. But let me just trust that it's possible. Because I will tell you, never in a million years, and I still laugh about it, like never would I ever have guessed I would have become the photographer I did, considering where I came from. Like it makes no sense, right? So in order for me to, because I was such a shy kid, like paralyzing shy. I always say I became self-employed because I didn't think I was employable. Like, I'm like,
Wow.
who would employ this overwhelmingly shy geek? Like, I mean,
Oprah.
exactly. Yeah. It just didn't make sense that somebody would employ me. So I figured, well, then I better take the bull by the horns and create my own thing. So that's where my interest in being self employed came from, rooted in selling eggs door to door when I was 14 years old. I just figured, I'm going to create my own thing. So, coming from that place of, I mean, so to me, my life and change has always been an iterative process of going beyond what I could have ever imagined, because I never thought that I'd be palling around and hanging out with wealthy people and going to the Oprah show and meeting Oprah and, photographing celebrities. None of that makes sense considering the kid that
Mm.
I came from, except for constantly believing in, I'll bet there's a bigger version of me that I'm currently aware of. And to this day, at 60 years old, I still say that to myself. I'll bet there's a bigger version of myself than I'm currently aware of.
I really love that, Jeffrey. It's powerful and it talks about the different versions that we become. And I think so many of us hang on to who we were out of fear that we are becoming more. And sometimes just making changes in our identity, whether it's positive or negative at the moment, we are becoming more of the person we are meant to be. And believing in that higher universe, God, energy gives us meaning and allows us to kind of rest and get into flow more than force, and feeling that you don't have to push and drive so hard, but having that trust that things will work out and what's divine for us will arrive in the timing that's not on our zone, right? It's the
Yeah.
timing that we need it. And so let's talk about change and the biggest freaking change you've made and kind of the lessons you've learned as you've navigated change.
Well, it actually ties in perfectly to what we were just saying, like imagining there's a bigger version of yourself than you're currently aware of. The biggest freaking change I made in my life was giving up an incredibly successful and profitable photography career
Yes.
to, I mean, to start over essentially. Now, it was a longer process than I intended. So what happened was in, I guess, 2008 or so. So at that point, I'd already been in business for 25 years as a photographer. And honestly, at that point, 25 years in, it was pretty much easy street. I always say I did two things. I showed up for the photo shoots and I showed up to sell the photographs, but I had a team of people to do everything else. So, you know, I didn't even actually work that many hours, but the money just flowed in. I had an 8-week waiting list for 15 years. It took years to build that up. I always say it took about 10 years to kind of build it up, but then I had a 15-year run of 8-week waiting list. And then it took another, nearly 10 years or several years to kind of wind it down. I actually just officially retired as a photographer about a year and a half ago. September of 2023 was my last photo shoot. But, for the past several years, it's been doing less and less and less so that I can make more room for the coaching. But without a doubt, I mean, and believe me, I've had many moments as a coach and an author and speaker and getting those things off the ground, thinking, what was I thinking? I mean, as so many people would ask me, like, why in the world would you give up this thriving, easy making money, career? Often it's interesting. A lot of people have said to me or have asked me, were you bored? It's interesting how often people think you give something up because you're bored. And I would always say, not a moment in my life, like, was I ever bored being a photographer. It was never the same thing twice. Like, it's not possible to be bored. I gave it up because I felt complete.
You
I
felt complete.
I
I
felt
love that.
complete. I just
Mhm.
didn't know where to go from here,
Mhm.
you know? And I felt that way at, 2008 when I did my coach training. Something was nagging at me that I wanted more of something. I wanted to contribute more to the world than what I was currently contributing as a photographer. Although I felt like what I created as a photographer was incredibly valuable. And I know my clients felt that way, but I felt like there was more. And that's why I went to coach training, never imagining that coach training, becoming a coach, was going to become my future career. I thought it was just going to be a skill set that I would have on the side. But once I got a bug of it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this coaching other people was like so stimulating to me. So then I just took my time. I said a good 10 years to kind of slowly transition, less photography and more coaching. And along the way, I wrote 3 books now and started coaching and speaking and podcast. And I started 11 years ago, 1,000 episodes.
Wow, 1,000.
It'll be 1,000 episodes in August. Yeah.
Wow, good for
Yeah.
you.
And then actually we're shutting that podcast down. I decided that was so monumental that on the 1000th episode, we're closing the self-employed life, and I'm relaunching a new podcast called Selling Luxury. So
Mhm.
stepping into another area of my expertise. So to me, without a doubt, the biggest freaking change in that sense was just decide, even though it wasn't like an immediate change, like not all
Mhm.
changes had to be a jump off the cliff.
Mhm.
But the biggest change was
Significant.
just transitioning from an easy career
Mhm.
to something that was far more challenging. And I just think my business today is a more challenging business. It's just, everything about it's harder to get people to step into transformation and
Mhm.
getting events to hire me as a speaker when there's so many choices. Like everything about it is harder. And I love every bit of it.
Yeah, it's probably more fulfilling too, the variety. Like we get
Yeah.
to a place, I know for myself, is you create your own reality. You've done something, it might be easy, it might still bring you joy, but you know that there's something more. And I find often when we step into that and trust that, right? We go into our flow, we don't even realize the potential. Like we just keep unfolding and then we have new ideas and new inspiration. I can't imagine writing 3 books. I've just finished one and it was crazy. But talk to me about your shift now. So whenever we go through a shift in our job, it often shifts our identity. And I believe you're an expert at this with the self-employed life and now selling to the rich. But talk to me about what you notice with the clients you coach when they are making a significant change, a big freaking change, the shift in their identity. Is it an awakening? Is it, they go through doubt before they come to the awakening? But talk to me about the insights you see as a coach.
I think it's more of an awakening, honestly. And that would be true in my own experience. My new book coming out called Sell to the Rich is very specific, but then there's also, I always say this is a book that has both a purpose and a mission.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose is anybody who's in the luxury space, this book is going to give them inside secrets like no other book that I've ever come across. Because one of the beautiful things about being a family portrait photographer for affluent families, like I would say,
You
like I don't just
saw.
know this market. I was in their closets, like
Yeah,
right,
literally. Yeah.
literally in their closets, hearing the most intimate conversations,
Yes.
getting to understand family dynamics. So I feel like I know the luxury buyer behavior and mindset better
Yeah.
than most would ever have exposed. It's not something you can learn in school, right?
Right. Yeah.
So for me, but that's been a reawakening. Because I will tell you, in 2009, when I started putting myself out there as a speaker, so many people told me, you should specialize in the luxury market. And I just shut it down. I just would say, you know what? I don't want to go to my grave talking about all things rich people. Like I've already done that for 25 years. I was embracing it as not being significant enough. And then here I am reawakened to, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I should be helping other people with. Because the reality is, and I don't know that I could have seen it so clearly without retiring. I think it was retirement was a big impetus because I realized I built what I did because of my authenticity. I built what I did as a photographer because I was genuine, heart driven, purpose driven. My favorite line in my whole book is that I loved my clients before I met them. And the more I got to know them, the more I loved them more. Like I lived in a world where I knew I was so attracting the right people that I knew I was going to love them and I hadn't even met them yet. So the moment I got a new client, I loved them and I already felt 100% connected to them. I don't know that most businesses can say that. There was no getting to know you phase for me because first of all, I was an exclusive photographer. So not everybody in the world would find out about me. If you did, I knew you were my people. That's just so incredibly rewarding to be in the world that way and have that kind of clientele. So I think it is a reawakening because that's what I'm experiencing now. I'm feeling like I'm reawakened to the love and compassion and empathy I have for that market, the luxury market, which I think can so often be judged and typecast. I have seen it very differently and I want to stand up for them. So this book having both a purpose and a mission, the purpose can absolutely help anybody in the luxury space. The mission, which is a little broader, which is why I think anybody can read this book, is certainly any business owner can read this book because I am unveiling the hidden secrets of luxury marketing and thinking. So even if you're not currently serving a luxury clientele, my big dream is imagine if all businesses gave their clients a luxury experience, whether you're in the luxury space or not. Imagine if all consumers and customers, what if we always felt like we were the most important, the most valued, received the most luxurious experience? What an incredibly wonderful world that would be. considering, you contact a technology company or a cable company and it's such a nightmare. You're like thinking, I'm like, that's
Yeah.
anything but a luxury. So I think this is a book that holds an opportunity for business owners to think outside of the box, even if you're not in the luxury business, but to like, what if you knew the inside secrets of what makes Tiffany's different than your local jeweler, who might be great, but why is Tiffany's the brand that everybody knows? What do they do differently?
Jeffrey, I love that you're saying, that sometimes the rich market gets, blamed, shamed, criticized. And it's this attachment to money that is interesting, that brings out different viewpoints on people. And I would love for you to speak a little bit more about the psychology of people and the psychology of money, right? So luxury is, you go into Tiffany's, they have the glove on, they cut the tag with the blue scissors, they give you the tea, they serve it, they put it on, go in, there's nobody there. Like it's a very customized approach and it makes everyone feel seen, heard, loved, valued. When you shift into that and you believe that the mindset has expanded and you're now worthy of the luxury, if I can use that word, because sometimes there's a stigma with that too, is, I have the money, but should I spend the money on this? But when you're really understanding the mindset of the wealthy and the hearts of the wealthy, talk to me about maybe some lessons you learned and how we can remove that stigma, money
Yeah,
or no money, right? It works
yeah,
on both ways. If you're poor, sometimes there's judgment. And if you're rich, there's judgment. And the truth is, we're
100%.
always judging. Like, why can't we just see people
Yeah.
without the label of wealth, right?
Here's the crazy thing. Oh my gosh, I have so much to say about this because there's so many examples. I mean, there was an example recently with the Malibu fires, the fires of
Hmm.
homes in Malibu, and I have friends and associates that lost their homes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe the amount of conversation on social media saying things like, oh, well, they're rich people, they'll just rebuild. Or, it's even just, good it happened to rich people. I had to fire back. I'm like, I just will
Hmm.
not. I said, I've spent my life serving this clientele. And I got news for you. Their homes are filled with items that are every bit, if not more sentimental than what you have in your own homes. And that's been my experience. I was in Paris recently and got together with a friend and I was telling her about the book, and she said to me, what's the biggest surprise of the book? Which I've never had anybody ask that of an
That's a good
author. I think it's a
question.
great
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
And I'd said to her, no, I think the surprise of the book is that you realize in order to sell to the rich, in order to succeed in that market, you have to understand this clientele is far more perceptive and intuitive than your average person. And I think the surprise of that is that people who aren't familiar with it think from the outside, they think rich people are shallow, that materialism is shallow. I can tell you from the inside, from the closets, it's the complete opposite. The fact of the matter is, affluent buyers are incredibly perceptive. It may be that they became or were innately perceptive, and that's actually part of contributed to their success. Or once you hit a level of success, you have to be highly perceptive because everyone's targeting you. So their antennas are way up on who's genuine and authentic. They know a million miles away. If you think you're going to serve them because you think the roads are paved with gold, they will see that so far ahead that there is no way you're going to hide it. And this is something I refer to like if you're going to serve this market, you have to strive for what I refer to as clean energy. You
Oh,
have to know your
good.
diamond edge.
Yeah.
You have to be authentic and genuine. You can't just know the latest in sales techniques. You have to develop for yourself what is the best, most honest, transparent, and authentic way to offer what you have to offer. Because if you don't figure that out, they're going to see right through your facade and
Yes.
they will shut you down so quick you will never get away with it. Again, to give you an exact, as a photographer, at some point in my career I shifted to having my clients pay in full. Now, never an issue. I never once had a client say, well, why? I want to give you 50%. They were so trusting, but we're not talking about a small amount of money. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, and they would pay in full. One, I did it for them because they want simplicity and minimal transactions. But I did it mostly for myself because I realized early on in my career that if a client's order had a huge balance left to it, that was a dangling carrot for me. And if the portraits came in and me in my extreme compulsive behavior, if I saw the slightest flaw, but I knew there was $10,000 waiting for me that I really needed, I got to pay the rent, I would think to myself, I'll bet they won't notice it. I think I can get away with this. And I try, and they would notice it every time because they're so perceptive. I mean, we're talking about the smallest of flaws or something. And I decided I wanted to remove the taunting of a balance. So I had it paid in full so that I could stand in complete clean energy and nothing went out of the door until I felt confident it was worthy of what they deserved. And to that point, and in my book, I talk a lot about the energy of words serving this market. This market, the luxury market, is so often described as discerning. And I say, you know what? I don't favor that word. I think they should be called deserving, not discerning, because I don't know anybody that's saying discerning without a little bit of snarky to it. When you say something, oh, it's a very discerning clientele, yeah, there's a little snarkiness of, oh, you mean over picky. And they're not over picky. They deserve to be as picky as they want to be. They've earned the right. They're providing you with the income that supports your whole life. So they're deserving, not discerning.
That's great.
So it's my love for this clientele is obvious. Like I
Yes.
truly believe in who so many of the people are that I encounter. I'm not saying there aren't bad rich people. And this gets to, I think, another point of what you're asking.
Hmm.
I am very aware that I'm coming out with a book so blatantly titled as Sell to the
Yes.
Rich
Yeah.
when there is deep hatred for billionaires in the US right now.
Yes.
I'm very aware that, well, that talk about timing. But here's my message. It's not the money. Money is not inherently good or
Or
evil.
bad.
It's the people holding the money.
Yes.
And in my experience, and talk about Oprah as we did a moment ago, people that have a good value system, when they become wealthy, do incredible things with it. Melinda Gates gave away 17 billion with a B, billion dollars
Hmm.
to charities that she believes in, education and women's health care,
Yes.
right? It's not money in itself is not inherently good or evil. It's the people holding it. And if you're awful before you become wealthy, unfortunately, it's likely to magnify it.
You know, what's interesting is sometimes we think, wealthy people are greedy, they're negative, they're bad. But we don't talk about, like, it would be horrible if someone with money said, oh, poor people or people that are working class are, this, that, that. So it's like a double-edged sword where we all strive to be successful and we want money because it's a flow of energy, it's a transfer of energy, it gives us opportunities. And then, like, rich people don't judge other rich people.
And they're too classy to defend themselves, right? Because there's a
Yes.
decorum that comes with the status.
Yes.
So I will speak up against the awful talk about people in Malibu, but the people living there won't stand up for themselves
Mm.
because there's a certain amount of decorum in class that they have learned. Right.
Mhm.
So, unfortunately, I think the affluent market is so often, like I said, judged and stereotyped in a way that we wouldn't think about doing to other people of any other
Right.
diversity without expecting a response
Backlash.
back. I
Yes.
think a lot of times the reason it perpetuates is because they don't defend themselves. They're a little too classy to get involved. And they tend to be very comfortable with who they are. One of my favorites, and I talk about this in my book, and I just have to bring it up because I just love talking about it. But have you ever been to Paris?
Yes.
Okay, so you may or may not have noticed, 'cause a lot of people don't even notice, but there are these gorgeous sculpture of fountains, like not major fountains, but they're water fountains, like a place to get fresh water. They're
Mhm.
called Wallace fountains.
Mm.
And they're beautiful sculptures. I think there's about 170 of them in Paris, but they're just around the city. They're beautiful. A lot of people just think they're beautiful works of art, but they're actually
Mhm.
a water fountain. You can put your water bottle under it
Mhm.
and fill up with fresh water. Well, Mr. Wallace was an actual person who, after a war, fresh water in Paris was an issue. And especially back in the day, it wasn't the cleanest, it wasn't the city we know today. It was not the cleanest city. They had a real problem with achieving fresh water. So he took it upon himself to donate all the money necessary so that all Parisians could have fresh water.
Wow.
So, there are just so many examples of people doing some beautiful things with their good fortune. And yes, there's always work to do, but I don't think there are a segment of society that's deserving of any more judgment and assumption than any other side. At least let's be careful with the words we use when we're talking about any and all people.
Any and all people.
Any and
Isn't
all
that the
people.
truth? Yeah,
Yes.
that is the truth. That is the
Yeah.
truth. There's a book called Soul of Money by Lynn Twist, and I remember reading it, and it gave me a new perspective about money, that it's an energy force, that you give, you receive, you close the loops, and the idea that you don't get attached. Money is not a problem, lack of or abundance, when you're not attached to it. When you're attached to it and you identify yourself only with that, well, on either sides, it can be a problem. You could be a victim to say, I'm never going to be successful. I'm always going to live in poverty. Well, that is also limiting. And also if you're affluent and you have, extra money and you just believe that you are superior, well, that can be a problem too. And it works on both sides. So I love the work you're doing. I can't wait to read your book, Sell to the Rich. And when I did see the title, I was like, wow, that is bold. That's the first thing that came to me. Congratulations for being bold and really seeing the closets and shedding light that every human just wants to be seen, heard, loved, valued, regardless of economic status. So thanks for doing the work you do. Jeffrey, I'd love to shift gears a little bit and talk about courage. You had to have courage to write that book, Sell to the Rich. It's a bold statement. You're going to get both sides of it. But talk to me about how you see courage show up in the work you do and how you would define courage.
I don't think anybody has ever asked me that question before. And I find it fascinating that you're asking because I guess I have a similar response to it as I do when I've been on shows where people say, tell us a failure story. I'm like, I don't have a failure story. And I say that because it's not like I've never failed at something.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't label it as a failure.
Right.
Because, and I'm not being glib to it, but just an overriding motto in my life is to make a decision and make it right. Like, so that if it doesn't work out, I still walked forward in commitment. So I feel that way about courage. It's like, it's really interesting you would ask this. Like you're motivating me to think about that because I don't think about the act of courage. I don't think about being courageous. I just do, right? I just do. And in hindsight, I can say, well, that was a bold move.
Yeah.
But there's something I have to say. I feel like there's something innate in me that I'm not judging whether something's courageous or not. I have to believe deeply in things. Like I don't waver in decision, and I don't ever look back and wish I made a different decision, because what I know is that I make a decision and I'm going to do my damnedest to make it the right decision. And if it turned out not to be, I did it with conviction. So courage to me is sort of similar, that I walk forward with commitment, but I can assure you I've given considerable thought. The title in this book, Sell to the Rich, is certainly one of them. It's a light example of it because it's not the biggest bullet, but I'm very aware of it. And I actually am just in conversations with possibly a French translation of it. And I can guarantee you that if that comes to be, the French will want to soften the title. It'll be marketing to the affluent or selling to the affluent, right? Just because culturally, they're just so much softer, right? But, I'm an American author and I felt like I just wanted to get to the point. And there's an underlying lesson in that. Then having worked with this clientele for 40 years, they don't like gimmicky, everything was always my pricing. Like, you don't price things $499. You call it $500. Like, you don't mess around, right?
Yeah.
You're just clear and to the point. It's one of the strategies of working with the affluent. It's like, just get to
Give
the
it
point.
to them.
They don't have time for nonsense.
Yeah.
I'm sure in hindsight, whether it works or not, I may look back and say, well, that was pretty courageous of me. But at the moment, I don't think of it as courageous. To me, it's more of a process of, do I believe in it? Do I believe it to be true? Am I willing to defend it?
Yes.
And if I feel all those things, I move forward with it. So it may be an act of courage that I never really thought about as an act of courage, because it's not until hindsight, I think I look back and say, well, that was courageous. In the moment, it just felt like, I believe this and I'm going to stand up for it.
Yeah. So it's the conviction that you're standing in your values, and
I think so.
You're sharing the truth. I love that. Well, I mean, so many of our thoughts are in our subconscious. We just act and then we reflect later. And I tell all my readers and listeners that you don't need more confidence in life. You need more courage, because confidence comes through the acts of courage. And I believe that courage is trusting yourself, standing in your values, standing in your power, sharing your brilliance, sharing your message, and, getting into that state of flow that you mentioned, of attracting things that are meant for you and attracting opportunities and using who you are. I'm curious about your coaching, because I think you see people deeply. You're highly intuitive yourself. You've learned that at a young age, but talk to me about what you see in your clients. Do they show up as confident and later you realize they still need to work on their confidence? Or tell me your insight on that.
It's always there. I think in my TEDx talk, which was back in 2018, it's interesting to me because it almost rings more true today than even when I gave the talk. And some parts of me would love to, I wish TEDx gave you a chance to go back and redo your talk.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's out there in its current form, but the underlying message, or the significant message of the talk, is that others often others see more in us than we see in ourselves. And that is my stance as a coach. Like, I
Mhm.
know the people before me, it's like, and I only take on clients
Mhm.
where I just see something. And one of my coaching services, I have a year-long group called High Achievers. And these are my best of best clients. And to be invited into the group, I assure you, like, whatever you brought to the table, I am seeing something so magical and so cool. And do think that taps into my skill set as a photographer, like my innate ability to see in people what they don't see in themselves. And it's also just a complete gut feeling. Like, I can feel it. And I'm even well enough in touch to know that I am very aware of when the hair on my arm stands on end. Like, there's just a something I feel like, oh, there's something so cool here that I want to be a part of bringing it out. So I find even if they present themselves as highly confident, most people don't. Most people present themselves, particularly high achievers, they will tend to present themselves with a certain amount of humbleness because, along the path of becoming a high achiever, you get knocked down. So you learn to start moderating how you come across a little bit. So most people don't come across highly confident, yet the confident can be underlying. But even those that do present themselves highly confident, I think the difference between whether you're showing up confident or not and the depth of confidence that I see in my clients when I know they've got it is clarity. It's like this process of clarity. And I always, particularly my high achievers group, which is, as I said, it's a year-long program. And I have some clients that roll from year to year. On any given year, I allow half the group to be from a previous group, and then the other half are new people. So we always have a good mix. So even those that will continually, go on in the group, there's one goal that always remains the same, and that is to be so confident in your area of expertise, so confident in what you're bringing to the world, not just your skill set, but the thing that you are willing to stand up for, be so confident in that you can't unsee it. And that's when confidence goes to a whole new level. It's like, because you don't have to pretend to be confident, you don't have to feel like you don't have confidence. When you believe in what you have to say so strongly that you can't unsee it. Or the other side of the coin is, which is literally an exercise we do, is that you can see your message in everything. And I'll have clients pick up a completely innate object in their office. I'm like, okay, now tell me what you see about your core message in that thing. And I'm always amazed how quickly they can do it. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, that's confidence to me. It's like, it's a confidence in knowing, even if, and I feel this way as a speaker, like, I have learned as a speaker to not try to be confident in the presentation in a way that I've memorized it, but be confident in what I know. So no matter what happens, if I forget what I'm supposed to say, if the slides go out, the sound doesn't work, I can still deliver the message because I'm confident in what I know. Clients come to me, no matter what stage of confidence they're presenting, I know that there's other layers of confidence that they have not tapped into yet. And that is when they're so clear on their message in the world
Mhm.
that they can't unsee it. And
And don't
that's depth of
yeah,
confidence.
and don't you think it's their essence? Like, I feel like it's like this calmness that they're able to be vulnerable, they're able to be fully expressed, and that is an energy. It's like an energetic exchange of like, wow, this person can see themselves and therefore they can see others. Like, I think it's like a connection.
It can be. I did a year-long leadership training program a number of years ago, and one of the things I picked up from that program were the stages of leadership. Like, so there's a front of the room leader, there's the side of the room leader, and there's the back of the room leader. And I'm more of a side of the room leader. All three positions in leadership can be equally confident. It's just the way of presenting it. A front of the room leader is just really good at the front of the room presentation and can do so with really strong confidence and be so effective at that. The side of the room leader has some versatility. Like, I'm a good speaker. I can take the front of the room, and I can be a back of the room leader, which I think the back of the room leader is the strongest position and the one that you described. Like, the back of the room leader, is the person, if you were in a group that doesn't say a lot, but when they do, the whole room listens, right? I have always been in great admiration of really effective back of the room leaders because they're so powerful. So I think when we imagine the best version of a leader, we love those leaders because they're not in our face. But that doesn't mean a front of the room leader is any less effective at leadership and in their confidence. It's just a different style. And like I said, a side of the room leader is I have my moments in both positions. I probably lean towards being a front of the room leader a little bit more, but I'm in great admiration for those back of the room leaders that just drop it in the room and everybody's in awe. A very, very powerful position to be in.
I love that definition and understanding that different roles are effective for different reasons,
Yeah.
right? And I think confidence is a place where we get to where we stop comparing ourselves to others, and
Mm-hmm.
we really embrace ourselves, right, for
Yeah.
who we are and our gifts. Jeffrey, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you today. I want you to share where everyone can find you, where they can get your book, and we'll put all the details in the show notes as well.
Sure. Well, you can find me at jeffreyshaw.com. Jeffrey is Jeffrey. Seems simple, but everybody spells it wrong. So it's jeffreyshaw.com. The book, Sell to the Rich, you can find at the website. You can go to selltotherichbook.com, and it's available on all the online platforms. And again, I suspect your readers will find it valuable. Your
Yeah.
listeners will find it valuable, even if they're not in the luxury space, because it's the inside perspective, which
Mhm.
if you apply in your own business, it can really help you stand out. And anybody, my entire team in the book, which was remarkable, heard me say all the time, this book has to have a lot of heart. I knew right from the beginning. In fact, on the cover of the book, aside from the subtitle and testimony, but at the very top of the book, it says more than a business book, it's a call to greatness. And that needed to be there because for a book to be called so bluntly Sell to the Rich, I really want people to realize how much heart is in the book from my own heart, but as well as how much heart it requires of you to actually succeed with this market. And that's a message anybody can learn from. So, selltotherichbook.com for that information, or jeffreyshaw.com for everything.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it. I'm thinking that the work you've done in Sell to the Rich will offer everyone a mindset shift, right?
Mhm.
And a new perspective of looking at luxury, whether we are in that market or not, but how do we make people feel connected and feel special? Like luxury is all about making people feel special and
Correct.
and seeing people. And I think that's a brilliant message that we all need to hear. So thank
Yeah.
you, Jeffrey, for sharing your brilliance with us. Thank you for being who you are, for your time, how you lead people, how you coach people, the message you share, the photos you've taken, and all your success. And I know that there's more versions of you that will come out. So thank you so much. And to all of our listeners, remember to take action before you feel ready. And follow that flow, trust your intuition, let yourself unfold into the next version of yourself. Sometimes it's hindsight that we realize how courageous we actually were when we're being bold and finding our purpose. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day. Bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and would be so grateful if you could share it with someone else that could benefit from it. Let's remember to change our relationship to change itself and take aligned action. If we want to make meaningful changes in our lives, we need to embrace stepping into the next version of ourselves in the process. Remember, stop waiting to feel ready and start taking action today.